Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. Today is May 1st, Wednesday, 2019. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me I have my co-host as always, John White. John, how's it going?
Hey, 1st of May. There's a famous song that I won't sing here because of my terrible singing voice and the content. But today's Color of the Bay report. I crossed San Mateo Bridge, blue-green water. It actually made me think, oh, that's what that seafoam color is, too. A little bit windy.
Yeah, a little bit windy, but yeah, beautiful weather.
Beautiful.
Beautiful weather. Not too hot, not too cold, just perfect here in sunny California. On the show today, we have Shri. Shri, I'll let you tell your last name. We're going to be talking about what happens once you deploy in cloud services, how to actually go deal with post-deployment issues.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome to have you in the room, as always. And Shri, thanks for joining us, and we will get to what we're going to talk about there on post-deployment issues. But before we do that, we'll do a little bit of the news. Lots of news going on today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, mostly because Dell Tech World is going on. And a lot of interesting announcements. I think everybody has heard that VMware announced something on Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like, from all the news reports, and believe me, folks, we don't have any inside knowledge ahead of time before they go on stage here, but it sounds like there's going to be an Azure offering, VMware Cloud Foundation inside of Azure, kind of like VMware Cloud on AWS. There's a slightly different name. That was very shocking to me, actually. I didn't realize that was going to happen. Had no clue ahead of time, but wow. Don't know what to say.
Yeah, I got to say, I tweeted out that this to me is we're finally in a truly multi-cloud, hybrid cloud era. I know that when we were in VMUGs and we asked how many people are running a hybrid cloud environment, everybody kind of it's like 3 or 4 hands, right? But now that you have AWS and you have Microsoft and you have your own data center, the likelihood of you actually moving into a hybrid environment over the next 5 or 10 years is pretty high.
Right.
And now being able to you see the logic between our infrastructure and setting up your data center this way so that you can choose which cloud environment best suits your environment. Now we have IBM, we have Microsoft, and we have Amazon. Now you can actually just play one against the other, still move your workload around, load balance your workload across clouds. I think it's a really good move from a VMware perspective, and it makes today's topics all the more relevant because we've been focusing in the last 6 months on, cloud ops, cloud management. What do you have to do to get to the cloud? And so here we are. We've announced being on Azure now. So really, really, really nice.
I don't want it to pay short shrift. There was another announcement, and that was the VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, I think it was called. Yeah. Which is the maturation of the Project Dimension that was talked about at VMworld last year. So that's VMware, hardware and software as a service on-prem from Dell EMC hardware perspective. The entire thing being a rental, right? Like, so it's on demand. It's as a service, VMware on-prem for you and in your data center. So that's a really interesting offering as well.
Yeah, it is interesting. What I found interesting is that they also mentioned that there was going to be an API that allowed you to just request from your application additional compute resources, right? So you can actually just code that into your app. I need X amount, and it'll just give it to you. And I think it gives it in like an HCI, hyper-converged infrastructure package, right? Whether it's a rack at a time, I can't remember what they said, or blocks in a rack, but it's certainly. I thought, wait, we're not back in the cloud business, are we? I thought we got rid of vCloud Air, right? I thought we were going cloud with Microsoft, IBM, and others, right? But this is really just about purchasing blocks of HCI machines that are pre-configured for you. Less about us running the cloud, maybe, but just giving you blocks of machines.
The sense that I got was that you're going to get the hardware from Dell EMC. The software was going to be provided by VMware. It was going to be, Cloud Foundation-esque, right? But the entire thing was going to be rental, right? So, the access was going to be through, an interface not unlike VMware Cloud on AWS, where it's just here is all this infrastructure as a service. You could request new compute.
Right.
You can request more storage on, and it just happens to be in your data center. For people who need.
Oh, I didn't pick the your data center component of the
in
message.
your data
right. So
center.
that makes perfect sense then, right? Just rental of a block of gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rent your, and then have an API. The API kind of read interesting in that you ordered it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the impression that it shipped or did something, right?
Right.
But you could actually just order it from your Power CLI application. Don't know why you do that, but that makes a little more sense now.
Well, I think that, obviously there's people, who programmatically interact with their infrastructure, who, they are kind of shielded from the entire purchase of the underlying infrastructure. Hey, I need more compute. I need more storage. I need more memory, whatever, so I just need to increase the amount of blocks that I'm using, kind of like they do in AWS, right? Hey, I need another EC2 instance. Hey, I need more S3 storage. And so they want to have APIs and interact with the underlying infrastructure that way. That infrastructure just happens to be on-prem. And, if it needs to go up in blocks of, whatever, then that's delivered, via this VMware Cloud on Dell EMC.
Yeah. So neat announcements there. I think there was one other announcement, but I can't remember what it was. But there's been a handful.
Kind of a joint VMware, Microsoft, Workspace ONE thing where if you're delivering things via Intune, via Office 365, it can all be managed.
That's
via,
correct.
Workspace
Management
ONE.
using Workspace ONE through your cloud services
Yep.
provided by Microsoft. Right. So interesting. What's the Microsoft CEO's name?
Satya Nadella.
Satya.
Yeah.
Interesting to see Satya, Pat Gelsinger, and Michael Dell all up on stage at once
Yeah.
doing the announcement. Just a new era, right? It feels like a new era. And
Right.
I know we're not supposed to talk about, the stock market reaction, but it has been positive.
Oh,
right?
has it? Okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
so that's good.
I had to take it off my phone because it was getting too distracting.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a new era. And when you start talking about cloud operations, how long do we run our own data center? How much do we do cloud ops and managing even your own data center through tools? The days of racking and stacking, are still here, but
Well, again,
it's a blend.
As practitioners, we have to figure out where that value line is, right? Is my value to the company that I can install a bare metal host, or is it installing the VMware on top of it, or is it delivering the things that need to go on top of the VMware, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
all right. Well, great announcements. A lot of fun. Dell Tech World was actually a lot of meat there this year, so that was actually good. Moving on, we do have VMworld coming up, and so I do have some key dates. I'm just going to announce the key dates every time we're here. I put it in my template for the podcast so that now it's just there. So I'll do the early bird access starts, I think, on 05/07. So in a few days here, 6 more days, you can get the early bird rate and get registered. And why you might want to do that is hotel blocks, if you're aware of hotel blocks. And in San Francisco, hotels are an interesting thing.
Expensive.
We get a lot of
Massively
feedback
so.
from the fact that we're no longer in Vegas. There's some good parts to it that we'll be highlighting over the next few months, but also there is the hotel issue.
Oh, my
So
goodness, yeah.
if you get an early bird reg in, you get a wider variety of hotel blocks available to you.
Absolutely.
So that's good. That's happening on 05/07. Then Global Content Catalog starts on 06/18. So 06/18, Global Content Catalog. And then early bird registration, let's see, I want to say ends on 06/21. And then early bird registration for Europe ends 07/26. So early bird registration for both conferences start on
the same
on
time.
the 7th, May 7th, and then those are the end dates. Schedule Builder opens up on 06/16.
Oh, wow.
So that's also something good to know. And then while we're on this, just a shout out to Alistair from V Brownbag. So V Brownbag is going to be doing a call for papers. So interesting point of this year, normally we would get the call for papers I don't want to say rejects, the ones that were rejected or not chosen for papers. Normally we would take those, and me and Alistair would sit down and then do a mail out to everybody that didn't get selected, going, hey, we still have slots open in the community podcast. And that's normally how we would get a lot of people to sign up for V Brown Bag. This year, they didn't open up call for papers to external people. So a call for papers was done in a different process this year. So we don't have a big list of you didn't get chosen for your paper. So give Alistair some love. V Brown Bag, just Google V Brown Bag. He's going to get the nominations up by next Wednesday. And so we'll bring him on the show and talk a little bit about it. But if you want to come to VMworld, we might have some passes if you can't get here on your own. And we're certainly looking for community papers. We're going to have V Brown Bag. We're going to have the theater there. We're going to be live streaming in San Francisco, so be aware of that. Alistair will be looking for community papers, and we also did call for code papers, and we had like 150 submissions in there already, so that's going to be pretty healthy. But Alistair V. Brown Bag, IT, focused on IT, practitioners, topics, those things. Show him some love and look for his call for papers. And then he has to get things in quickly this year. So there's a quick turnaround time to get them in and get probably 60 to 70% of his papers should be in schedule builder when
it launches.
When Content Calendar launches. They want to actually have more of the community content available for people to see, get some stronger commitments from the presenters so that it's more part of the show. So we've promised to do a little bit of work there. So that's what's going on. The conference, obviously, 0825 is US and 1104 is Europe. So that's my weekly, here's counting down to VMworld as always. So that's what I've got. Do you have any other news that you want to do? We should say hello to the people on Facebook and on YouTube if we ever get around to publishing that. And for the handful of Twitch followers, thanks a lot for saying hello and following me on Twitch. So live stream all over the place. It's great. You got any kind of news you want to wrap up with?
I have some VMUG meetings that are taking place. Today you are hopefully at Halifax. Tomorrow, North Central Wisconsin VMUG meeting in Eau Claire. The Silicon Valley VMUG, also May 2nd. The Myrtle Beach VMUG in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is on May 3rd. Also Prince George in British Columbia, May 3rd. May 6th, El Paso VMUG in El Paso, Texas. May 7th, the Charlotte VMUG, Charlotte, North Carolina. And then it looks like there's a meetup in Memphis, Tennessee. Orlando on May 8th is their UserCon. And then UAE VMUG event on May 9th. Southeast Idaho, May 9th. London, May 9th. And let me see. I think that might be... Oh, no, I take that back. Wichita, Kansas, VBeers number 2, also on May 9th. Christchurch, New Zealand, May 9th. And the El Contro VMUG meeting in Brazil, also May 9th. So I think that'll catch us up to next Wednesday. Nice.
So everybody get out there, get to your VMUG meeting. Don't be a stranger. All right, on with the show. So Shri, welcome to the show again. And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, how long have you been at VMware, what have you done in the industry to get you to this point, and then we'll get into the topic.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Tell me how you pronounce your last name.
Upadhye.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Thanks for having me here, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm 27 plus 30.
I saw your tweet with, the resistors.
Oh, yeah. My son last night, we did it, and, I do the Raspberry Pi stuff.
Right.
But a lot of some of the sensors need to keep certain pinouts high or low, and so you connect it to ground. Mm-hmm. But you have to put a resistor in there, and you have to put like a very high K resistor because that way it's not really a short. There's just a very small drain, but that'll drain a 1.5 volt pin from high to low, right, without causing a short,
Short,
because
right,
you
right.
have a super high
Okay.
resistor value,
Right,
like a
right.
1 meg. So those are always hard to find, and different things need different resistors. They make like a $10 little packet that, that gives you, 25 different, various resistors, 10 of each of them or something. So yeah, super cool. But it is my birthday, so thanks for giving me a shout out.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So I work here at VMware as a public cloud advocate. I'm a newbie to VMware. I joined just before Thanksgiving last year.
Not
And-
bad. That's almost not newbie anymore. Like,
Yeah, that's almost 6 months.
Around here, it's like you're becoming a professional old guy.
Yeah. So, and I currently focus on cloud operations and cloud security. And before this, I was working at Cisco and NetApp, where I was a technical marketing engineer focused on DevOps processes and orchestration and automation in public cloud and also hybrid cloud environments. And that's where I got, hooked on to AWS. I've been doing public cloud since 2013.
Yeah, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right at the beginning almost. Right.
Yeah. So those are the days when Amazon had EC2 Classic and other stuff.
Right.
And at NetApp, I actually, as a matter of fact, I worked closely with VMware. I worked on VRA, VRO, and VROps products. So we had joint collaterals, and I was part of that, working with essays from VMware and building hands-on lab for VMworld and stuff
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because NetApp was definitely one of those partners that had hands-on labs.
Exactly.
At VMworld.
Yeah.
It's a little known fact that like you can, as a partner, like you can actually develop your own HOL,
Hands-on, yeah.
have it published and have access to it, and not, NetApp was one of the few that took advantage of that.
Yeah. So I'm new to VMware, but not to the ecosystem itself. So
Sure.
I'm
Right.
aware of,
And in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, pretty much for your career.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice. Nice. Okay. Then you come to VMware. How did they recruit you into VMware?
So I was just talking with John just before we started the podcast. One of my friends referred me to this position, and and I was
That's
like,
all
yeah,
it takes.
yeah.
Right.
And I'd heard all good things about VMware. I have like a lot of friends here who've been working, so that was also another.
I tell people that are new that VMware is really fun because it's a yes company, right? It's almost like going to a big university versus a small university. I went to both, a small and a big. And when you work in a small, you're looking for things to do when you're at a small university. And there's just a clique of people, and then you go to a big university, and it's the direct opposite. Everybody's pulling at you. There's so many things to do.
Yeah.
VMware's like that. VMware's a yes company. There's so many things that you can do, and everybody wants to do everything, and everybody's really positive, and sure, we can do that. Let's help us out. And there's sometimes budget. It's easy to do things.
Totally
here,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
Versus when I was at Sun Microsystems, everything was a committee, right? It was like a no company. You basically had to get a committee, do a paper, do a presentation, get that presentation's feedback. A year later, you might get an idea approved, right?
Yeah.
Where VMware is the opposite, but then VMware, you have to try to figure out what not to do because there's just a lot of things you can do. So yeah, cool, good. All right, and now you're heavy into cloud, and today's topic is obviously now that you're on AWS, how do you remediate issues that you're seeing? So
Yes.
why don't you take us through the problem statement, and then we'll dive deeper.
Yeah, sure. So we all are using, automation, orchestration tools, right? Whether it's Terraform, CloudFormation, or maybe VRA or CAS or things like that. And it makes it easier to deploy your applications, your instances or containers or whatever you may have. Once you have it up and running, you want to ensure that the apps that you are deployed are secure, right? The infrastructure itself is secure. And one of the things that you'll hear always the cloud providers talking about is the shared responsibility model, right? And I think there has always been some, misunderstanding within customers and also the users of cloud. Like AWS says, hey, we are HIPAA compliant and we are PCI compliant and we are, all of these things. And they assume that if I run my application or if I use one of their services, I am also compliant and I am also, secure.
Right.
And
Flow through, right?
yeah. So that's not true. So the shared responsibility model basically means that whatever is the data center, right? In our traditional sense, we have our on-prem data centers where we own the whole stack, network, compute, storage, and the real estate itself, right? So everything is with us, so it's easier to manage. But in case of the cloud, network compute storage and the data center is owned by the cloud providers. So the security of that, whether it's physical security or the security of the services which run on that, is the responsibility of the cloud provider. But the apps that you run on those, right, if you use EC2 or if you use RDS or S3, now it's your responsibility. So if you misconfigure those instances,
Right.
cloud providers are not liable for that, right? So you have to protect your applications, and you have to, manage the risks associated with that.
It's like if you live in an apartment building, the apartment provider is responsible for front door and the front gate.
Exactly.
But if you leave your door wide open, that's your fault.
That's your fault, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then that could lead to a lot of risks, right? So the cloud providers are pretty, solid with maintaining the security posture and things like that on their infra. But when it comes to us, we again have, similar problems what we had in traditional ways, but the way to handle them, changes in the cloud, right? We still have network risks, which is like DDoS attacks or intrusion, things like that. We still have application risks, meaning your software packages you have used in your application have not been patched, right? There are vulnerabilities with them. And then there is, again, compliance and governance related risk, right? Who has access to what data, and which resources have been, let's say encryption has been enabled or not, and things like that, whether the ports are being protected, applications are being protected.
Right.
And so there are some similarities, but there are some differences as well.
All right. Yep, makes sense. So that's the problem. And now when you're in a cloud, it's just like there's so many SaaS offerings. I got to imagine that the way there's opportunities to address these problems differently than if it's in my own data center, or maybe you can just take advantage of tools and things. So we can talk about that. But before we do, I just want to know, like, when stuff gets stolen out of the washing or dryer, who's responsible? Is it the owner or is it the building? Right? Because
It's the owner, right? You had to be sitting there watching your wash.
you just have to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This explains a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, so all right, now we've framed the problem, right? What is VMware? What's VMware's role in this? Why are we here?
So so we are seeing that our customers, are on this path of migration, right? They want to use hybrid cloud architectures, which means vSphere everywhere, right? It's on-prem and vSphere on AWS or Azure or anywhere, and then some of them are also moving to public cloud only offerings, and we want to be there, wherever our customers are there, and we want to provide them with solutions. So that's where, today I'll be talking about VMware Secure State, which is a real-time configuration security and compliance monitoring tool, which we have. And I'll basically talk about how, these solutions can be built around this and how you can leverage this, like off-the-shelf tools, or, you're free to build your own. But I want to emphasize on what the process is in remediating issues or violations within the public cloud.
All right. So secure state, right?
Yep.
I don't think I have heard anything since Tom Korn came on a podcast like maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, where he was just visualizing why VMware might want to be in this space. And now we fast forward a year or two, and where are we on our product journey?
So we acquired, I think Cloud Codeu was the company which we acquired almost last year. And we are currently in beta, and we'll be in GA pretty soon. And once we are in GA, you can go and access the service at cloud.vmware.com. And under our SaaS services, you can choose Secure State, and you can have a 30-day free trial.
So I remember when we did this acquisition, one of the advantages was just automated, almost like an audit of your environment to say, hey, you have this S3 bucket that's misconfigured. It's just publishing, your permissions say anybody can read it.
Yep.
And we've heard over and over again, these giant breaches, and then fundamentally what comes down to is somebody had like a storage bucket that was misconfigured. And all this data was stolen. But I imagine it's not just that, right? Because if it was just that, then there would be 400 different tools, including open source tools that would be able to do that audit. But I'm guessing it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, definitely. So those are the basic things that the platform can detect, right? Like I was mentioning, compliance and governance is really complex topic when it comes to cloud providers. Some of the reasons being, they're releasing a lot of services at very rapid pace, right?
Right.
Today you have, one version of, RDS, and tomorrow you'll have like 5 different versions of databases. And your developers would want to use that, right? Because they want to get their product, their application faster time, like to the market at a faster rate. Second is the dependencies between these services, it gets very complex, right? So now if you have to spin up a EC2 instance, you create a VPC, you create a subnet, and then you create a EC2 instance, attach a security group. Back when I started around like in 2013, you could create a EC2 instance without a VPC.
Right. Just
So
SSH.
just spin it up, right?
Yeah.
So these dependencies and the relationships between these services, keep changing, and it's very hard for someone to keep track of, how they are making these changes, right? And if you use a lot of services like machine learning services or S3, like you were mentioning, text recognition, image recognition, it's almost impossible to keep track of that. And this problem just becomes 2x, 3x, depends on the number of
Yeah,
cloud
sure.
providers you
Right,
use, right? And everyone has their own way of doing things.
Well, I have a feeling that it's not a linear complexity; it's exponential complexity.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And also the last but not the least, right? Identity and access management. If you see my laptop, this is the most important thing sticker. Like I put it on the top, just because it's the piece that is holding all of this together. And in case of public cloud providers, unlike our traditional data centers, the users can have policies, right? Users can have permissions assigned to them. So it provides them with access to what they can access or what they cannot. But you can also assign policies to the instances themselves. So your EC2 instance can have a permission which allows you to get access to your RDS instance or S3. The good thing about that is your developers don't have to store the keys on the instances themselves. But the bad thing is if you are assigning an admin permission to one of the EC2 instances, anyone can SSH into it. If someone has the key, they can SSH and they can do anything they want.
Right.
You have noticed that.
Yeah.
I've gotten keys, right?
Yeah.
Because we run stuff there, and it's
Yeah.
like
Right.
my guy that's my developer, right? Just here's the key, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's it, like not just a key. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's why it gets very complex, and that's where, tools like VMware Secure State can come and help you in understanding these violations.
Right. So how does it do that? Maybe we should drill into the product a little bit more. Like, and then there's one thing like what is it actually doing, and then two, how does it manage boundaries between applications, all of that, like, or does it not bother doing any of that? You should
Okay.
talk more.
Sure. So, this is so configuring VMware Secure State is pretty easy. Okay, you don't need any agents. You're not installing anything, or you're not deploying anything of that sort. All it needs permission to access your logs, right, from different services within cloud providers. Like I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure itself is owned by the cloud providers. So earlier on-prem, we could get the logs by ourselves, but there you have to use their services to get logs. So some of the just good practices, whether you use any kind of compliance tool, is always enable VPC flow logs, right?
Okay.
That allows you to find out information about what is going on in my cloud network, right? Second, enable services like CloudTrail or Azure Activity Log, which basically tells who, when, and what API operations were performed within your infrastructure, right? So that gives you API context. And then enable services like Guard Duty or Azure Threat Protection. And what they do is they identify any particular anomalous patterns or activity happening on your instances. Let's say someone is trying to do SSH brute force attack, right? So it can alert you about that. And what Secure State can do is Secure State can ingest all of this data and make sense of it and lay it on top of a data model which we have built within the platform itself. And what this data model does is it can understand the relationship between, like I mentioned, the service dependencies, complexities, right? It can understand that, and it can show you a layout of how things and services are connected to each other.
how does the data model get built? You said it's in
Right.
we have it, but I would assume that depending on what applications I'm using, what I'm doing, my data model might be different.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So the service is based on, let's say you use S3 and
right.
EC2 only, right?
Okay.
So it will show you the relation between, hey, your EC2 instance always tries to access, this
Right.
particular
Okay.
S3.
Right.
Or you could be using more other services like RDS, or you could be using, Redshift.
Right.
So that would change, but it can basically detect violations based on the rules that you set.
Okay,
if
so
you
there's
use-
a rules engine. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
right,
There's a
okay.
rules engine
Right. I'm
against-
setting up my rules engine across those services. If I have new services,
Absolutely.
I can add more rules to that services, and it's all at the network layer.
Exactly. And at the network layer as well as at the application layer.
Okay.
More often, right? Because of the services that AWS and Azure provide. So we could do
Right.
like
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
and we can do like John, you were mentioning simple violations. We can detect things like, hey, the S3 bucket is open to public, your SSH port is open, right, to the public, or your RDS instance is not encrypted, or let's say your user has not rotated their passwords or their keys, right? These are simple things. I mean, you
Right.
could, which we detect. But Secure State can also detect something called as complex violations, right?
Ooh, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
My ears just perked up. Ooh, complex violations. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so these are violations which are usually composed of smaller violations, and they are not evident just if you look at them, right? We call it connected threats within Secure State. Do you guys watch Game of Thrones?
Yes?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm not going to give any spoilers,
Don't
okay, but
give them any spoilers.
Yeah.
But it was. I watched episode 3 and it was really good.
good, yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, it's really good.
It has amazing background music too. So,
Yeah.
so like if I were to show, I'm going to take an example. I have 3 pictures, right? I'm going to show a picture of a White Walker, right? And you might think, that's bad,
Right.
right? And then I can show a picture of your favorite character, right? And, standing in the snow, I guess,
Right.
right? And then you might be like, that looks unusual. And then you might see some spear or a sword.
Right.
You'll be like, okay, that also looks shady. And but all of these 3 are, different issues, right? But when you put them together, you might see that the White Walker is probably going to stab your favorite character,
Right.
right? And it's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's not happening, right?
Right.
I'm not going to allow that. So what we do something similar within Secure State, right? So one of the examples that I like to give is, let's consider we have 2 instances, right? EC2 instances. One of them has public-facing IP, and one of them is private. So yes, there is a violation, right? You should not have any of your SSH ports open to the entire public. Either it should be your enterprise IP addresses, right, or your VPN, or your personal laptop, or whatever you might be using. Second, I can assign policies to instances themselves, like unlike on-prem data centers. So I can say this EC2 instance has admin policy. So let's assume that I'm attaching that policy to my private instance. Still sort of okay, because I can say that, hey, this is a private instance, right? No one is
Right.
going to get to it. But now if I use the same SSH key, right, for these 2 instances, which more often so people tend to do that while deployment, right? They're like, okay, I'm going to let it use this admin key, right?
Right.
And now if I do that, so you can think of it
A
like
chain of attacks, right?
now there's a chain of attack, right?
Yeah.
So if me as Shri, even if I don't have admin permissions, but I have the SSH key, I can get into the management box because it has public IP, and then I can hop into the private box, which is also using the same SSH key, and I can do anything because that box has admin permissions.
Right.
So Shri, without even having admin permission, was able to change anything.
Right.
And guess what happens when you look at the logs within AWS infrastructure? It will show you that the instance made the change. It will never show you that Shri was the one who SSH'd,
Really?
right?
Oh,
Right.
okay.
And that is such a complicated thing to, deduce just by looking at simple violations, right? So you have to look at all of them together and build that graph to actually deduce that, hey, there's a violation. So Secure State can do, things like that.
Wow. Okay. Because it's interesting. I have to say, again, going back, almost every security breach that I've seen it does involve a chain of responsibilities. Like, oh, this port got left open, for this, and then this other thing, was compromised and connected to this, and then this other thing got in here, and then they got access to the important information and were able to get in. So it's that chain. That's so interesting, complex.
Right.
Okay. Mind blown.
Yeah, interesting. Yep. So it's out there. It's in beta, right?
Yeah.
Does it run? It obviously runs across cloud services. Does it run internally if I have my own vSphere implementation that I want to look at same kind of relationships?
Not
No.
yet,
Okay.
because we started first as cloud first approach. Within our portfolio we have some tools which have grown from on-prem to the cloud, and there are some tools which are like Wavefront. We have Cloud Health, which have grown from cloud to on-prem. So currently we are in the phase where we'll be supporting public cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and then we'll add more services
Right.
as we go along.
Yeah, that makes sense. When we bought this, how many years? When did you say we
I think
acquired this?
around February, March,
February,
probably
March,
last year.
right?
Yeah.
You're almost at beta, or you're nearing beta. Can we talk about when it's going to actually be available?
I can't comment on the exact date, but it's going to be pretty soon.
Okay, good. And
yeah.
are you going to be at VMworld talking about it then?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll be at VMworld talking about it. I'm also going to be at AWS Reinforce. It's their new security conference.
Reinforce.
Yeah.
Reinforce.
Oh, wow.
It's in Boston. Yeah.
Boston. What? When?
I think 25th, 26th
Of this
June.
month? Of June.
Okay.
Of June. Interesting. All right. So you guys haven't really started to track features yet, or know where you're going, because you're just getting the first set of the features out the door, right? There's probably no HOLs for it yet, anything like that, right? So where do you start learning about this? You just wait until it comes out, then read documentation, I would assume.
No, you can definitely go on our blog. It's cloudjourney.io.
Right.
Where we post a lot of stuff, not just about any particular product, but also about technologies and different things you can learn about Istio, Kubernetes, or Wavefront, Cloud Health, whatever it may be. Or you can also go to cloud.vmware.com, and there is quite a bit of material out there on Secure State as well.
So security is moving. This seems like almost a point product, right? Like I look at kind of like the application layer and building a framework for when applications are talking back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Does this go all the way up? I get the services from the cloud vendors, right? And looking at log files, and then they have APIs that allow you the secure state to connect to those and mine data and look at your models and aggregate data and figure out what the policy violations are. Do you go up the stack when I'm starting to build, applications? I'm building web apps, right? And I'm using Apache, or I'm using any of the common web servers. Where does this tool stop with regard to, like, if I'm building modern apps, cloud native apps, where I have microservices running around and I have a whole bunch of microservices? Am I looking at their interactions too? Would I use the template or the ability to build modules to track things? Where does this stop?
Yeah. So we don't go currently, right? We don't go yet inside the applications itself, right? We won't do. We don't want to go inside the package and look at your vulnerabilities or things like that yet. Right? What we do is at the configuration and governance, right? Who has access to what, how the resources should be configured so that they can talk to each other. We also have our own app which we had built and which we deploy using Terraform and Ansible, right? And then we use Secure State to look at how they are talking to, whether my web server, like you said, Apache, does it have access to my database?
Right.
Yes or no, right? So we can deduce those things because of the data model and the topology that we have.
All right. When you see a violation, how do you report it out, and what does Secure State do when it does find a violation?
That's a good question. Yeah. So when a Secure State finds a violation, you have various ways of alerting to the user, right? Irrespective of what you do, the process is always, in a continuous security model, the process is always to first detect, right, investigate, notify, and then remediate. So detect and investigate, is done by Secure State for you, and it can notify you via email. You can get an email alert, or you can get a Slack alert, and then you can remediate the issue. And you can use the data that Secure State sends you. So Secure State will basically send you in an alert. It will say which object, which region, which cloud account, which cloud provider, and what was the problem. And it will also redirect you to knowledge base articles as to why Secure State thought that this was a violation. Or
I can definitely see you want like almost like a separation, right, in any kind of security operations model. If you're going to give a tool like Secure State access to all the logs and interactivity, you don't also want it to have the ability to write out configurations. Right?
Why not?
So, but yeah, to that point, we are also working on something called as a remediation engine, where you will have the ability, if you want Secure State to do that on behalf of you, Secure State would be able to do that as well.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because some customers might want to say, hey, these things happen often. I don't want to spend my time, let's say my developers always go and create a S3 and they forget to make it private, right? And I don't have to always go and, block that thing.
Right.
I want this system to detect, notify me, and then go and fix those.
Right.
And maybe for some things, I want to take control, right? Let's say I have a production app running and I get a violation. I want to first make sure that, hey, everything is okay, before I flip the switch.
Yeah.
So you could choose that as well.
Yeah, I can see like for some security things, like, you have information in S3 bucket, you want it fixed right away.
Exactly. You don't want to wait for, something to happen and then,
Right.
Yeah, there just seems to be a Terminator movie that reminds me of something that watches and then takes action, right? And, locks you out, right?
Yeah.
You can't get back in, and now it takes over. I can see that. So no AI capabilities yet.
We are building those as well,
wow.
because that's how we'll be able to, because we have all the data within our platform.
Right.
And that's how we'll be able to give you better insights when you're going across the cloud, right? You might have, user one accessing using AWS as well as Azure, and then you want to detect, some patterns and provide valuable insights.
Does Secure State monitor itself?
We do that. Yes, it's Log4. We monitor the Secure State environment in production, which we have deployed using Secure State.
Okay.
Right, there's a loop there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that you start to create vulnerabilities in the application that you're giving permission to monitor, right? And if you know anything about hacking, the rule number one of hacking is make sure you erase your trail when you get in there, right? So that nobody knows you're there. And
so that's why you're trying to ingest the logs real time instead of going back forensically and doing it.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
That's one of the capabilities of Secure State. There are a lot of tools out there, which use continuous API calls, like they make repeated API calls to AWS to get information. The problem with that is API calls, there are limitations on AWS. You can't just make unlimited number of API calls, right? So what they recommend is, okay, we'll do an API call every 5 minutes. But now it's not real time anymore, right? And I can do, like Eric was saying, I can come in within 5 minutes, get your data, erase the trail, and just go out. You won't even know, right?
Right.
So, or by the time it might be too late. So that's one of the nice things about Secure State, that as soon as a violation happens, right away you will get a alert.
I got to come back to the knowledge base, right, also, because I think that's key, too, because one is determining the pattern of a violation, right, but then being able to give it to me as a cloud operator to realize how severe is this, right? Is this something that is just a misconfiguration, or is this really something malicious, right? Then there's most of the things we go track down are not malicious. They're just because we just had poor maintenance and some bot is spamming us, banging at our ports or whatever. And so the knowledge base where you're updating to give me kind of, okay, this is what's actually happening. Oh, wait, there's some other things. That's actually really important to have there for operators? Is it things you read? Is it a dashboard? How do I get taken to a knowledge base?
Yeah, so it's basically, a web page. So whenever you get an alert, or you can go log on onto Secure State dashboard as well. And we have, based on cloud providers, we have knowledge articles for particular services.
Yeah, this is
S3.
I'm
if you get a
reading it.
S3 port open, let's say S3 public access alert,
Right.
what exactly does this mean, right? It's good that, you found it,
Right.
but what exactly does it mean, and how can you fix it? Like if you were to do it just by yourself, or you want to use your CI/CD tool to, go and fix it for you.
Got it.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's going to be the key to most of security is that I feel like I'm overwhelmed with the amount of security there needs to be in a modern cloud app. And it's like, how do I simplify this? How do I get it to a point where it's just digestible and I can actually just see the few things that I really need to worry about and let somebody else worry about the things that are not, or don't worry about them at all, right?
Right.
That these are just things that we'll process for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like this space for an IT guy that comes in and then starts having to deal with cloud security, it's kind of overwhelming. Right?
Yeah, definitely. With the number of services they have, and the
Right.
number of services developers want to use as soon as they're released. Oh wow!
And when you're building an app, because we build apps, right? We never stop and think, okay, so what's the security burden
Of
for this
using
app?
thing,
Right?
right.
When
Yeah.
we're we think about how to run it, what GUIs we need, but we never actually think about, okay, there's going to be X amount of security you're going to have to worry about when you're using 15 different microservices from these different places, right? And nobody, and then we worry about it only when we built the app, deploy the app, and then we have problems.
Exactly.
Right. No,
Yeah, I mean that's the principle behind continuous security model, is that you don't do that, right?
Right.
You have to ensure that security checks are embedded as a part of your development process itself, right? If you're using a CI/CD tool, make sure that there is some static analysis code done right away. And if something fails, fail it right away, right? Don't let the application deploy and then, get some tape to start fixing it within production, right?
Yeah.
So, so as a matter of that, at the final stage after you deploy, that's where, Secure State can come in. It can validate for you, and as soon as it is deployed, it can alert you.
Right.
Meaning, let's say you have a dev environment, you deploy and you have Secure State set up there. Secure State can, let's say, gives you 100 violations. So you can go and fix your Terraform template or CloudFormation or anything, right?
Right.
And now when it goes to prod, you should not see, those violations. But if you still see them, it means something is going wrong, right? It's a very good information.
So where does this fit into the Kubernetes framework, where I'm deploying apps, Kubernetes managing, my GitHubs, my Docker images, and then my test staging and production servers? Are there hooks that plug in here?
Yes, we are working on adding, hooks to Kubernetes itself, right? Whether you might be using native services like EKS, AKS,
Right.
or you might have your own deployment of Kubernetes. Right now, it monitors all the instances and all the native services like RDS, S3, and Redshift, and things like that.
It's interesting. I imagine that there's going to be, like, I know that we have other offerings in the space, like I would say NSX Service Mesh, right, which kind of intermediates the microservices speaking to each other.
Right.
So it has its own security model, like user access model, minimum permissions. So then you have these layers. You have different things.
Different layers at which they operate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then those services, like you mentioned, those services might also be using cloud services, right?
Right. On the back
They
end.
might access something else out there. So at that point as well, you need something like Secure State, which is monitoring all of this, right?
Right. So we started at quarter after, so we're running till quarter after. Hopefully people don't feel too bad that we're keeping you a little bit late. But that gives us maybe another 7 minutes or so. I always like to kind of come through and say, so what are your plans for the rest of the year? What keeps you up at night? What are you most excited about? So maybe we can touch base on that.
Sure. So what keeps me up? Probably for the next 3 weeks, Game of Thrones, right? I have to think about, what's going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, I'll be, our team will be there at various conferences. We'll be at Reinforce. Dan Nelson from our team, he'll be at KubeCon in Spain, Barcelona next month. I'll be at Reinforce, and then we'll be at VMworld. And our team is applying. We have CFPs at a lot of conferences. We are also there active participants at VMUGs and DevOps Days. So yeah, you can find us there. And you can also, follow us at CloudJourney.io, or you can follow me on Twitter and GitHub at iShrivats.
Shrivatsa, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What's most exciting?
Most exciting.
Yeah. Because we did keep you up. Where are you going? What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited, I think, for our Secure State release. I'm waiting for that, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. I know that people on hold on a minute. TalkShoe Skype died just a minute ago. So if you're listening, you can jump on Facebook. There we go. I got to type that. There's a handful of people there, and they're not hearing us anymore because just about a minute ago we heard the in our headphones.
Wow. Yeah.
That was Skype going, yeah, we don't want to be online anymore, which gets us into cloud services and debugging. Right? So, there you go. I don't know. What else do we have to follow up with here in the last 5 minutes? You've talked about restate the site where you can your blog again. It's
cloudjourney.io.
So that's good. Game of Thrones. We talked about that. That's important. You need to know where your Game of Thrones is. So
exactly.
I'm very excited about waiting for the next episodes. Question for you. Mm-hmm. How many Game of Thrones episodes are there this season? I heard there's not as many.
6, I think.
So there's only 6, and we're already on number 3.
3 already.
So
done.
this thing is wrapping up, right? We've only got 3 more left. This explains a lot. After watching episode 3, I was taken aback on how quickly things are moving along.
Yeah,
right?
it was a pretty long episode.
It was a long episode. Yes,
an hour and 20 minutes, I want to say. Something
crazy
like
that.
that.
Yeah. Normally they're an hour, right?
Normally they're an hour. Yeah,
they're an
it was
hour.
like 1.5 hours.
Yeah. This one was an extended Game of Thrones. So good. Sorry, just had to. Since we've got you here, thought we would do that. You'll be at VMworld. Have you submitted any papers?
Yeah, I've submitted some papers for VMworld as well as some code sessions.
Oh, nice.
Right. So we'll do a shout out. Yep. If you get one, I'm certain you'll get a code session because security is one of those things that everybody's going to have to deal with in the cloud environment. And I think actually, if you look at cloud operations, it's probably going to be the number one thing that you do as a cloud operator, right?
It's the number one thing you worry about anyway.
Right. Keeping it up. Because you don't have to worry about keeping the servers up now. That's
right.
the cloud's people's
their
job, right?
Yeah.
The Kubernetes runs the deployment and the management of all the apps that are running out there, and the developer teams, you're interacting with them. So what do you have to do? You have to watch for performance and security.
You have to watch for cost and
Right.
security.
Yeah, cost, performance, and security.
Yeah,
Right.
and we have products in all these 3.
Each of those,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that are we going to bundle this stuff over time? Like it seems like we have Cloud Health, we have these different point products that we've acquired. And wait, you don't have to answer this because this is just.
You're looking for a new suite?
When I first came to VMware, 12 years ago, you just bought ESX, right?
Right.
And then we invented vSphere, which is basically a bundle of the stuff you would actually need to run a data center from a compute perspective. And there just seems to be this cloud services set of things that we're talking through between PKS and Cloud Health and now Secure State. So I see a bundle. I see a bundle in our future.
Really? Yeah. People hate bundles, but what I do see that's very interesting is we've moved from this dev and ops and to DevOps, right?
Yeah.
And then of course we start hearing about DevSecOps.
Right.
So one thing that you mentioned was like integrating those security concerns and that idea of audit and policy into that process, so you don't have the violation in the first place when you're doing the development.
Exactly.
Right. And then not, needing to do this, like, one audit or like, quote unquote continuous audit, like only after you go into production.
Yeah.
That's the wrong attitude to have. And it's so interesting that these tools are now starting to become available and have that integration into the process to get that good outcome the first time,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I'm excited about the future. It's also interesting. This has nothing to do with vSphere, right?
Yeah.
Yet another product that we're coming out that doesn't have anything to do with the virtualization. It has to do with cloud operations.
Right, and then it's also a point to our opening where when we are announcing that we are multi-cloud and that we have these cloud services, that we actually have products and bundles of products, and people like yourself going out to AWS and now what's it called? AWS Secure. What's the
Reinforce,
right? And we're talking about going to reInvent again this year. The community team is so
nice.
we've getting our costs in line to show back up at reInvent again and take Alistair and crew. So again, it's moving the boat. It's broadening the ocean, I guess. So like, I don't know if we're turning the boat, but we're just we just have more ocean to sail around in now, and we're doing a pretty job. Putting products in places that IT practitioners need, and then from an IT practitioner standpoint, you can stay with VMware, learn about these things, get access to products, and then expand your viability into running a vibrant IT career for another 20 years. Yeah, nice. All right. Well, what is your Twitter handle so people can give you a follow?
It's Shrivatsa, ISHRIVATSA. I'm pretty new to Twitter. I'm learning from my teammates Sean and Tim. They're like pros.
All right. Well, we'll get you some followers. So repeat that again.
Shrivatsa,
right.
ISHRIVATSA.
VATS.
I just tagged at vJourneyman. I just tweeted out the picture of your laptop with identity and access management, and I tagged you in the picture.
Right.
Thanks.
Great. And then the last but not least, we have a barbecue report from Tony, but because the line is not on, we're going to have to jump over to facebook.com where we're live streaming, which we will do, VMTN Community, and we'll check out what Tony has to say. I know he's been barbecuing. I'm going to do some jerk chicken this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
And I got plantains, and I've been learning how to make nice, yummy plantains. So that's good. So barbecue report from Tony Foster. He grilled a shiitake mushroom a couple days ago, and those were a fail.
Oh, no.
Crispy shiitake mushrooms, apparently.
Huh?
I'm sorry to hear that, Tony. Maybe next week you can get it right, and we'll keep Talks You Up, and you can join us and tell us how to do it properly.
Yeah.
I personally like everything charred, so I would probably like a crispy mushroom.
I'm back with my smoker this weekend, chicken thighs, my old standard.
Nice. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. It's beautiful weather outside. It's the time. We planted our garden this weekend. So put in tomatoes as always, and cucumbers and lettuce, and standard vegetable garden stuff. But good time if you're in California to plant a little garden, even if you got a back door, right?
Yeah.
So outside barbecuing, plant some garden. Got my kite surfer. Maybe I'm gonna get out into that freezing cold, muddy bay, turquoise blue bay, and get some kite surfing done. But
Well,
all right,
green, but okay.
All right. Well, it's the end of the show. Thanks a lot for saying hello, everybody on Facebook.
Hey,
thanks again. We'll be back again next week. Until then, have some great barbecue and enjoy the good weather wherever you are around the globe or around the nation. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.